Hey guys, today we're going to be throwing in the transmission mount I got from Boosted Fab. It should be a drop-in and no big deal to get done. The only big thing we actually have to modify is it's a half-inch pin for the stay bolt. So we are going to have to open up the mount on the engine by a hair, because I think it might fit, it might not. I know the stock one bolt is only like a 12 mil, so we'll see if it fits. If not, we got to open up just a hair to get this one to slide through, just to actually fit the collar inside the bushing and make sure it doesn't have any room to play. So we'll get that done. All right, guys. So we're gonna get started on this. First order of operations is gonna be getting the intake pipe out of the way. I'm hoping I can maneuver this out of the way to the point where I don't actually have to take the front bumper off and then drop it down and out, because with the automatic transmission, it's really tight to get the filter up and out this way. We're gonna take the MAF sensor off, and then I have to move my catch can out of the way, and then eventually we have to get down in here, and if I ever focus this camera, there we go. It's this bolt down here that we're gonna have to take off. Now, what we have to do before we even take any of this off is we're gonna have to jack the car up and disconnect the center member. Then we have to take out the through bolt through your front roll stop. This has to come off, and then I don't know if I have enough light, but we got to take the bolt out from your rear mount. Actually, it has to come out as well. And what the whole thing is we're going to do is get the car jacked up, and then we're going to get a jack underneath with a piece of wood underneath the transmission to support it. And then basically, once we get the center member out, get those two pins out of the front and rear mounts, we're going to actually take the pin out of the bolt out of this transmission mount, and then slowly try to drop it a little bit, because you're going to need a little bit of room to actually get that bolt. You have to take the 4 nuts off of it, and I'll show you guys when I get to that point. Alright guys, before I forget, at your center member you're going to have these two bolts for 17 millimeters. You're going to have to take these out, and then at the back here you have these two, and this will actually be the 4 bolts that take down your center member. I already got out the bolt for the rear mount, the pin. You have 2 options when taking out your front mount. You can either take the 2 bolts that mount it to your center member out, and then just leave the through bolt, which is what I'm going to do, because taking that little 14 millimeter bolt off is a pain in the rear. So I just take the 2 bolts out on that mount the front roll stop to the center member here on the top side. You can take those 2 bolts out, and once you drop this down, it'll just leave the mount basically hooked up to the connection point to the engine. I do that only because I hate taking out that 14 mil. There's like almost like an inch and a half of just extra thread you got to work off. So I'm just going to take everything off. I'm going to take those 2 bolts out, leave the stop attached with the pin, and just take the center member out. You need to take this out because you need to leave yourself enough room to actually drop the transmission down. You're going to basically tilt the whole engine down to the transmission side. You need it because the bolts that the transmission mount sits on are probably about an inch and a half tall, and you need the room to actually drop it all the way down to pull the mount off after you take the nuts off that hold it down. So I'll show you guys that too. Alright guys, so we got the mount out. This mount is just a pain in the rear to get. This is going to be the side-by-side comparison. As you can tell, it's a lot smaller with the one from Boosted Fab. One piece of advice I'm going to give you guys is, once you get everything out of the way, which is kind of what I did, I need 7/10 of a millimeter for the new bolt. I'm hoping, actually, you know what, let me grab. This is going to be the new bolt. As you guys can tell, that's side by side. I am a little worried that it's too short, but give it a go. And it holds too small. So we can't open that up just a hair. My main concern, if I get this, there we go. Is that on there? Might have to go with the old bolt. Oh, there's a lip here. Oh, you know what? We should be good. So I'm going to open the hole up a little bit to accept a 1/2 inch, because this is technically 11.7 millimeter, and this is 11 millimeter flat on the actual shank. So I got the jack underneath. You do have to take out, like I said, you got to take out the front and the back and the center member to actually get the engine to drop, because if you guys can actually visibly tell how cockeyed this is, just to get this mount out, because you have to get this low enough to actually get off of the studs down here, because there's 4, 1, 2, if I can get them on the camera, yeah, 1, 2, this one actually came out, and 4's right here. This one I'm just going to screw back in, and it'll be no problem. The big thing I definitely forgot to mention though, obviously you guys notice I don't have a battery in here. If you have a battery still up front, you're going to have to remove the battery, because the battery stock came with a big tray that sits right here, and you need the room to actually pull this mount towards the engine and then back towards the actual like where you sit behind the wheel. So you need the space in here to actually pull this mount like out. If I zoom out, you guys can actually tell where the hell I'm at. So you're gonna have to take the battery out. I recommend it anyway, because that's how I was able to get to the back mount from not actually having to crawl under the car to do it, because that is a pain in the ass. But once you guys get that done, you can actually take this mount and just take the 4 bolts out, take the pin out. All 4 bolts are 17. The nuts that are on the studs are 17 mil. Same thing with the bolt, the pin that goes through and holds the actual mount in. That's 17 mil, both head and nut, or 17 mil. So it's 17 mil to take the whole assembly out for the transmission mount. If I forgot to mention it, the front bolts, if you did what I did, which is just leave the mount sitting there, the 2 bolts front and back, those are 14 mil. And the same thing with the rear mount. If you're going to take the pin, not if, but when you take the pin out, that's also 14 mil front and back. Once you get those all out, and by the time I get this all back in, I'll give you guys what the book calls for as far as torque specs go. I'm just a little dirty trying to get this in. Now we're going to test fit the new mount and see how that comes out. Alright guys, so we got the new mount in, right down in there. The bolts that hold this down, if I get this to show, these 4 bolts are going to be torqued down to 43 plus or minus 5. I'm going to put these down at 45 foot-pounds each. The pin that goes through is 61 plus or minus 9. I'm going to put that at 65. And actually all 4 bolts on the cross member down there, well technically it would be like over here, they're also, all 4 bolts are 61 plus or minus 9. Those as well I'm going to put at 65. So 65 on all 4 of those bolts, 65 on the pin. The through bolt on the back, as same thing with this one, is 43 plus or minus 5, so these are at 45. So I'm going to put the back one at 45 when I put that back on. It's all up to your choice. The book calls for you to put the weight of the motor back down. Like right now I still have it on the jack, but I'm not really sure why I would want at 43 foot-pounds to have the weight, because that's going to click in 2 seconds. So I'm going to torque mine with the jack still underneath there. Alright guys, so everything's all done. We got it all wrapped up. I'm still got to torque everything back together. It's been a long night, because I learned the hard way that you should not torque everything down until you have all your pins back into your motor mount. So in hindsight and on video, you get to learn from my mistake, which is once you get everything bolted back together, do not torque everything down until you get your pins into your front, rear, and transmission mount, and then torque everything down. Because I fought with it for over an hour and a half until I came to the realization that I had to take and loosen every bolt I just put back in. The mount fits solid. It dropped right in, it bolts right in, lined right up with the pinhole, no issues whatsoever. Eventually I'm going to have to drill it out and put in that 1/2 inch, just for a little bit more security, and not worrying about it moving around. If you guys do get some time and you're looking at upgrading your mounts, Boosted Fab makes great stuff. All you got to do is contact him. If it's not something that I've sent him already, because I've already sent him the hydraulic mount and I've sent him now the transmission mount, which this is based off my GS. If you have a GT, if you have any other cars, he does anything you can imagine. So soon I'm going to be sending him some suspension parts to see if he can duplicate that with some tubular sets, including the center member, because I would not mind dropping like 10 pounds off of that and then making it smaller for my radiator to have a little bit more extra room. So if you guys get a chance, check him out, Boosted Fab, Instagram, and if you really get a chance, go to his website, which is boostedfabrication.com. These two mounts should be up there. If they're not up there now, they will be up there soon. Any questions, contact him, and he'll definitely help you out. Thanks for watching, guys.